It's showtime. Going live. It is show time. And make sure I've got all of my stuff. Here we go. All right. The Bad Batch didn't fail the Republic. The Republic failed the Bad Batch. And what happens next might be the most important shift in Star Wars history. Stick around. Hey there, Star Warriors. Welcome to Star Wars SafeSpace, your non-toxic, low-sodium Star Wars show that doesn't make you feel bad for not knowing that Omega is an unaltered clone of Jango Fett and is basically Boba Fett's kid sister. So tonight we're talking about episodes 2 through 5 of The Bad Batch, season 1. We're not going to be recapping. We're going to be breaking things down and diving deep into a post-Order 66 galaxy. And thanks to Crash, we've got company tonight.
Yes, we do.
Heck yeah. All right. So, but before we get into any of that stuff, let's meet the cast and crew, shall we? So, pilot of the infamous Parma Flyer, it's Crash.
Hey, folks, let's lock those S-foils in. We got a good one tonight, and we got some friends, so let's get at it.
There you go. There you go. And hailing from parts unknown, it is T to the Oni.
Welcome back to the galaxy, everybody. Let's get started. We got a lot to cover today.
All right, yeah, we do have we have a lot to cover today. Man, we've got topics. We've actually got stuff organized a bit, kind of. I don't know.
Exactly.
So now, before we get started, a word of warning to all you would-be Star Warriors: there will be spoilers, so be aware of that. So we're going to be diving in, talking about episodes 2 through 5. A lot of stuff going on with those episodes. We are seeing the Bad Batch now. Order 66 has ended. They came in hot on the heels of Order 66, and now they are trying to adjust basically to civilian life. So we're going to be talking about all those fun things. But before we do that, let's meet our guest, shall we? Crash, you want to introduce this young man?
Yes, I do. As you know, I run our Facebook page, and early on, we had this guy replying to everything. And I mean, deep dive. He is totally in with our vibe. He's got his own YouTube channel called Blurry Films. He does fan reviews. He gives whole narratives about countering the fandom menace. And I mean, he doesn't hold back as much as we do.
Nice.
So this guy, I've been wanting to get this guy on for a while. So hey, give a big warm Star Wars Safe Face. Welcome to Dylan.
Hey.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right, there we go.
And he hit the right button.
I did, because I read what it's, I labeled everything this time, so everything's labeled. So Dylan, tell us a little bit about yourself that Crash didn't already cover.
I think he did a great summary for the most part. I'm a YouTuber. I've been, talking about Star Wars related stuff. In fact, I mean, it wasn't my channel wasn't originally about talking about Star Wars stuff. It was just about nerdy stuff in general. But as the internet reacted to the sequels and everything, I just sort of slipped into, providing my voice to things and just trying to add balance by offering an alternative perspective to some things that I found pretty outlandish on the internet. And, sometimes I probably would word things a little more heated than I typically do now. But, lately I've been more focused on my art. And I think that has more to do with, personally, I feel like the toxic stuff that used to go around is kind of mellowed out a little bit because there hasn't been as well. I wouldn't say as I was going to say there isn't as much Star Wars, but I feel like lately a lot more projects maybe aren't as divisive as previous installments have been. But I mean, that's just my perspective on things. So,
they've shifted. The fandom menace has shifted their attention now to Harry Potter. So they just kind of latch on to
Yeah.
like the next thing to complain about. So once
Yeah,
Mandalorian and Grogu comes out, I'm sure that they'll be back.
They're
Yeah,
too busy
that's-
killing off Starfleet Academy. They'll come back to us when the Rey movie finally gets made.
Yeah, that's definitely
They know where the
what.
clicks are.
Yeah, that's definitely where I think things have happened because they want to latch on to the biggest things. I mean, they do that for Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, and then they'll pit it up against someone as a this versus them kind of controversy that they fabricate for views. And
it's so formulaic. It is so formulaic.
It's
you look
boring.
at people, I don't even want to mention their names, but we know who they are.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's very formulaic. And they all do the exact same thing. It's the same rhetoric. It's the same setup, same payoff. It doesn't matter. None of them have an original thought between them.
No, it's even funny because they almost can't help themselves from like spilling the beans a little bit, because I mean, one of them in particular a little while ago, I mean, he's constantly like butting heads with his own community because he says the quiet part out loud, and then you see all the other people in the chat like, whoa, hey, whoa, that's not what we do. But I mean, he just I think he said it was along the lines of, oh, you make 50 videos about saying the same thing week after week, and it's
It's very predictable.
It is
very predictable and just boring.
I got into a conversation with someone on our TikTok account, and I won't argue with anybody anymore because I'm completely unbothered by it. However, I will engage with them because it bumps up our engagement metric. So I'm not going to not go back and forth with them. So thank you, haters. But I posted something about Kathleen Kennedy. I'm a fan of Kathleen Kennedy's work. I think anyone who enjoys cinema over the last 40 years has enjoyed Kathleen Kennedy's work. And of course, the standard response now is, the best thing that Kathleen Kennedy ever did was announce her retirement. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I talked to this guy. I was like, all right, so there's nothing in Kathleen Kennedy's body of work that you've enjoyed. It's all, you said that her entire body of work is trash. And you're a Star Wars fan, and you're going to tell me that you didn't like any of it. And he was like, well, I like The Mandalorian, and, I liked the season 7 of the Clone Wars, and I liked Rebels, and I really liked Rogue One, and Skeleton Crew was cool. I was like, well, so what about Indiana Jones? He was like, well, yeah, I like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Temple of Doom was okay, but, so you just rattled off her entire body of work.
Half,
right. But
when it's a success, it's some man's accomplishment. When it's a failure, it's Kathleen's fault.
Yes, that's exactly what they do. It's this like it's almost like it's just this switch where anything that's beloved, it's the heroes that it's Dave Filoni, it's Jon Favreau, it's it's like I was like referenced earlier, it's the us versus them. It's this person pitted against this person in this fabricated controversy. And Kathleen Kennedy had the same exact influence in the projects that worked for the fandom as the parts of the projects that maybe not so much. But but in regards to Kathleen, I mean, for me personally, I'm in agreement. I've enjoyed most of her work. In fact, I would say there isn't a project that in Star Wars that they've created that I've absolutely detested. I mean, there's things that I'm like, I probably wouldn't watch it a second time, but I feel it's harmless. And there's some cool stuff in there I can acknowledge. But ever since like she's retired, I have been sort of not anticipating. I'm trying to think of the right word. It's I've been sort of like cautiously kind of like waiting to see how the new management with Dave Filoni and Lin-Wen, I'm sorry, I can't recall her last name, but how they will operate the system. And thus far, there are some signs that I'm liking that I see. For example, I would say like the biggest problem Lucasfilm has had over the past few years has been a spending issue, where a lot of projects seem to have been over budget, and that I think in turn also affects the likelihood of whether or not these projects get more seasons. Because if they don't get the viewership, it's like with the Book of Boba Fett and the Acolyte, allegedly. Like at least with the Acolyte, it actually had pretty good viewership numbers,
It did.
but it was so overpriced for what it was that that Disney just didn't see any reason to continue funding for more seasons.
Right.
And
It's like that old line from the movie the Right Stuff. No Bucks, no Buck Rogers, or in this case, the Bad Batch.
Yeah,
and basically what's going to end up happening, and I'm okay with this, is that we're going to be moving into the Filoniverse, and it's basically we're going to have everything is going to be a sequel to Rebels, and I'm okay with that. All of Dave's favorite characters are going to be everywhere. That's always been the biggest complaint about Dave, is that he's basically turning everything into Clone Wars and Rebels 2.0. I can think of worse problems to have.
Well, with the release of the Maul series coming out, I mean, that to me is like peak animation right there. Like it's just everything about it just strikes all the perfect chords with me. I mean, the coloring, the animation style, just like everything about it just strikes the nerve of like, this looks pretty.
So when it comes out, you'll have to come back on with us. Because we're gonna be taking a pause from our chronological journey that we're on right now.
No, for sure.
To jump into Maul. So when that happens, you got to come on. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Maul.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to it. So let's get into the Bad Batch. You are familiar with the Bad Batch, I would assume.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. So you know where we're at in the storyline right now. Season 1, episode 2 through 5.
2 through 5. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe episode 2, I can't remember the exact name of the title, but it's the one where Hunter is trying to leave Omega with that farmer family with one of the other clones that was able to break away from all the fighting and actually set up a life for himself.
Good old Cut LaQuaine and Sue. Cut is out of all, like I cosplay as Captain Rex. I've got a giant Captain Rex costume. But Cut LaQuaine, he is my spirit clone. Because not only did he find this super chill wife, he hooked up with a Twilight chick. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. And she's really cute. It's instant.
And she's good with a gun.
She's great with it. She's a good shot.
Oh my God.
She is a great shot. And even Hunter says that in this episode. He was like, oh, I forgot how good a shot you were. So, but Cut, you're my boy. All right. So some of the themes that we're seeing in these episodes right now, we're looking at how this is not a story of war. We're not looking at this. The Clone Wars are done. Okay. And, it was mentioned in these episodes that sometimes it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like someone had said, it doesn't feel like the Clone Wars have ended, but now, the clones have gone from being, defenders and liberators to being occupiers at this point. So now we're looking at the Bad Batch as this crew of extremely specialized soldiers who are now dropped into this world where they're trying to find their place in the galaxy. Where do they fit in without war, and without this sense of purpose? And we see that in episode 2, and Cut tells Hunter, this is what life could be. This could be you. I mean, you could, have a little cutie pie, a couple of kids, a farm. This could be you. And Hunter doesn't compute. Like he doesn't, you can almost see that he's like physically uncomfortable with the idea of peace.
Yeah.
Because he's never known it. And then by episode 5, they're back to taking on, jobs. I mean, they're taking on, these combat missions and escalating things, but we'll get into that in a second. So we do see how the Republic did in fact fail the clones. No clone is prepared for post-war life. They're just not. And so this story becomes less of a post Clone Wars story and more of a story about what happens to these soldiers when the war ends and how nobody tells them what's coming next. So my question for you, for the panel here. So who do you think is handling the transition the worst? Clearly we see Crosshair. He's handling it just fine. But of the batch, and Crosshair's kind of he's a different circumstance. We'll talk about him later as well. But of the rest of the batch, our core group that we see, who do we think is having the most difficult time there? Dylan, you're our guest. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think the easiest answer would probably be Hunter because, he's the team leader. He's the guy that's supposed to be, in charge of the missions and leading his people. And now he's in a circumstance where it's like, what do you do when you don't have orders coming down from any kind of chain of command? So I think he's now kind of put out of his element to try and find a way to keep work for his team,
right?
But also, realizing that the world they helped build through the Clone Wars has completely turned against them in this regard because they can't really reap any of the benefits of the Empire. Because they're on the run with this little kid, and they clearly had objections about where the Empire has gone politically with, occupying and suppressing people rather than what they felt like they were doing all through the Clone Wars, which is, freeing planets and bringing democracy and stuff to the people.
You're going to get democracy whether you like it or not.
Yeah, it's
and you bring up an interesting point about Hunter, leading, but at this point it almost feels like he's more surviving than leading, and his squad isn't really a squad anymore. It's a group of survivors. It's this band of survivors.
Yeah,
at this point, Tony, what do you think? Who's having a difficult adjustment period here? Do you think?
So they haven't shown it yet, but for me, it's got to be Echo, because even in the Bad Batch, he's an outsider. I mean, because he's he's a reg, but then having had all the other shit that's happened to him throughout his time.
Echo,
and then all of a sudden being dropped into this new reality, this new way of life, and again, so far they haven't really shown it, but you can only imagine what's going on in his head.
And we've seen a lot of clones go through some shit, but Echo has gone through some shit. I mean, he's got. Have you guys seen that new movie War Machine?
Not
with
yet.
Alan Richson. It's Alan basically being Reacher. He's basically the same character, but they're fighting like this giant alien transformer robot.
Yes, I watched that just recently. Yeah,
it's basically a rehash of the Predator. It's nothing new in cinema. It's a fun watch, good popcorn movie.
Oh yeah.
But while my wife and I were watching it, we just kept and Dylan, you said you've seen it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the most common thing that we said throughout this movie was poor Seven.
Yeah.
Because yikes, poor Seven. Like I wanted a t-shirt or a commemorative mug for Seven. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't want to spoil it for you, but poor Seven. It's worth watching. I mean, it's on Netflix, I think, maybe.
I think so.
It's on Netflix. Definitely not worth seeing in the theater. It's on a streaming service. So if you have that streaming service, watch it. Don't pay for it if you're already paying for a subscription. I don't know. Anyway, but I felt that way about Echo. Poor Echo. I mean, this guy and Tony, you bring up a great point. I mean, he was detached from his brothers for so long, and then he comes back. He doesn't feel like he's a part of that, that team anymore. He's not a part of Torrent Squad anymore. He's not a part of the 501st anymore. And then now, he's basically adopted by the Bad Batch. And, like you said, he's still kind of feeling maybe a little alienated. And it just, again, it points to how none of the clones are equipped to deal with life without purpose. And Dylan, as you said, what does a soldier do when those orders aren't coming in anymore? That could be dangerous, not just for the clone, but also the galaxy. I mean, is there anything more dangerous than a soldier with no orders? They've got to do something.
I think Hunter is, or not Hunter, Crosshair is sort of the equivalent of that in a way where, because, well, I mean, he's obviously getting orders, but it's more, he's so eager to get those orders and to go back into that system. He's willing to take any orders, even if it's morally black.
Yeah.
We were talking about that before the show. We did the first 2 episodes in our last season, and there's that moment where Tarkin is testing their loyalty, and he sends them after Saw Gerrera's rebels, terrorists, I think he called them. And while Hunter was scoping the situation out, and Crosshair locks in on not just there's civilians in this camp, and Crosshair zooms in on the little old lady for the headshot.
Someone's abuela.
Jesus Christ, dude.
So and we were talking about that too. Like, how much of this is the chip, the enhanced inhibitor chip, and how much of it is just Crosshair kind of being a bit of a war criminal there? But we'll get into that some more. But Crash, I want to hear your take. Who's not dealing with this adjustment very well out of the Bad Batch?
I agree with Tony in that with Echo, but I'm going to pair it off with Tech, because their skill sets sort of overlap, and we see in these episodes, Echo is kind of a regular guy, even though he's been through some shit and he's got some augmented abilities, but he's just a guy. Tech is a little bit of an odd bird, and he relies on his intellect and his logic and his technology to kind of get him through the day. And all of this upheaval into the culture they were bred for and what they were trained to believe in, I feel like Tech is trying to find himself and also dealing with having a spare part that does the same job he does.
Yeah.
And you can see a little bit of a clash. Like, I like when they were trying to unlock the ship in the port. The ship got impounded. They put the magnetic lock on, and they're bickering about how to do it. And do you want to do this damn thing? Go ahead. You could hear the frustration in his voice.
And then here comes Wrecker.
Yeah.
Here comes Wrecker.
At least we can safely say Wrecker is having the best time.
Yeah.
Because he's just there to be a part of the fun. He gets to knock someone upside the head. He's a happy bird.
Sure. Sure. And he's hanging out with Omega.
Yeah.
They have such a great dynamic.
I love it's like that big brother, little sister dynamic. I love it. It's weirdly wholesome in a way.
One thing I will say about Wrecker that has been causing me some confusion in these episodes. The man is a tank, right? I mean, without doubt,
yeah.
He's a tank.
Was that a question?
However, he gets knocked out really easily. He's been knocked out so many times. Like, I mean, Fennec, she bashed his head up against a control panel.
Yeah.
Out like a light. And he had his helmet on. I was like, come on.
He needs one of those padded helmets the NFL guys wear on top of their, he's got some CTE going on.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, his chip he's starting to feel it. We see him with the headache. So, he's got a lot of stuff going on in his noggin right now.
He also went one-on-one with a Rancor.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. He went one-on-one with Mochi, right?
Yeah.
And Mochi was knocking his ass all over the place, hitting him with rocks, throwing him into rocks. He got up, he's like, yeah, this is fun, But then Fennec knocks him out cold. It's like,
I was kind of hoping for there to be a little bit more of a drawn out fight where maybe he would just yeet her around and she could pull some cool acrobatic moves.
Yeah.
To, choke him out, maybe.
Get her in a bear hug, and then she pulls out some stun batons and
yeah.
Now if she would have encountered Hunter, that would have been a good fight.
Oh yeah.
but that maybe they thought we couldn't handle that. Maybe it's too soon in the series for us to handle that, because that would have been a fight. I would have.
Well, I'm also like not so secretly in love with Fennec Shan, just because of her voice actress being played by the same woman who voices Mulan, who is also coincidentally my favorite Disney princess. So I'm just throwing that out there for the sake of conversation.
Just manifesting, brother. I hear you.
That's fine. Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Right,
Nothing wrong with that. So, well, again, so we're seeing them in civilian life now. The Bad Batch, they're out there. They're free and clear of this war. But can they function without it? Can they function without any hostility, without having a mission? They don't function well at Cut's farm. It's just they're uncomfortable. When they're on Pantora, they instantly escalate the conflict. Instantly escalate it. When we see them, well, we're gonna go in a little stealthy. Come on, you guys. The only person that does stealth, Hunter and Crosshair, to a degree, but it always goes sideways. But I mean, that's just great TV. And then in episode 5, we see them going right back into the mercenary work. So they're throwing themselves. They're almost manufacturing conflict for themselves because they're not getting what they need, and they feel like they need to be part of some sort of conflict, that they have some sort of a purpose. When we see Hunter, out of his element on Cut's farm, not that he's in a rural area, but that he's in a time of peace, and that's not his element. So when we're looking at that, it's like, does he want a peaceful existence? I think so, but does he know how?
It's a peaceful existence in still in a very dangerous environment. The scene where Omega, the ball goes out behind the fence. The kids know not to go behind the fence, and she goes out there and immediately runs into trouble. And Hunter overreacts because that's what Hunter does.
Right.
And I like the fact that Cut, because he's a parent. He's I'm not a parent, but I like the fact that his positive adult male role model. His first reaction was to console the child,
right,
who made a mistake because she didn't know any better. This scene was that episode was great for Omega overall. Just the second she stepped off the ship and literally touched grass for the first time, you could see the wonder in her.
Yeah. She's like, "What's this?
Dirt.
That's dirt."
Yeah.
Dad, I love this.
Yeah. And so it's her first day off of Camino, and she almost gets eaten by a jungle cat. It's not a totally safe environment, but they have set up rules and a life, and the kids know what to do to stay safe. Omega is completely off the reservation, literally, figuratively, and even the guys are kind of off the reservation in that they're not used to landing at a spaceport and having to pay the guy to park your ship. They were soldiers who just covertly land their ship in enemy territory. You don't pay the parking meter when you're undercover.
I love that scene with Wrecker. He was like, yeah, thanks. It's like, no, you need to go and pay up. But with Hunter, and yes, when I say peace is him being out of his element, obviously there's dangers on every planet, but I mean, no one's trying to blow your head off. There's some beasties out there, but even that, I mean, for these guys, what's a few local fauna? That's not a big deal. But when I think another thing with Hunter that we're seeing is his fear. Like, he is the only one who is afraid for Omega, and I think that's why he was so hard on her when she did step outside the gate. He didn't know how to comfort her or parent her, of course. But he is afraid for her. And that really comes across. The rest of the gang, they're cool with her going out with them. You stay in the ship. You cannot do these things with us. He is afraid for her. He is afraid to lose her. And that's also something that is completely out of character for him. This is new for him as well. Him being afraid for someone is like Omega discovering dirt. I feel like this is like a brand new thing, which that was dumb. Come on. she's a learned child. She knows about other planets. She knows that dirt exists.
But if you haven't touched it, you haven't been there, you haven't seen it. It's like
this is dirt. I've read about this.
You bring somebody from Florida up here to the Ohio area during lake effect snow season.
Sure.
See how they react.
Sure. No, you're not wrong. But at the same time, if I lived in Florida and I came up here to Ohio in a blizzard, I'm not going to be like, what's this white stuff? This is unusual. I know it's snow. I'd be like, this is interesting. I mean, it's
if all you ever saw in your life was Camino rain, I mean, it would be an interesting.
I get it. No, I get it. I agree with you 100%. I think I loved seeing, this look. She was just mesmerized and she was just in awe of everything around her. I love that she had that childlike curiosity because she's never seen these things. And like you said, she's surrounded by water her entire life. But come on, she knows what dirt is. Jeez, come on. All right. Anyway, moving on. Before
I don't know the cloning facility itself seems very, very tidy place. I feel like they'll have a conniption if you have dirt under your fingernails.
Yeah, there's probably not even any dust.
Oh.
In those Kaminoan facilities. But again, I mean, she's read a couple of hollows or something. I mean, she's read some books or some data pads or something.
And
if she hasn't, that's an indictment on the Kaminoan education system. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah, Tony.
I mean, honestly, that's exactly it. It's she's not just a kid. She's a clone. And while she was not bred for war, she was absolutely bred for a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And do you think Nalse gives a damn whether or not she learns about dirt?
Well, not
no,
dirt.
They're going to point her in the direction of the things they want her to know.
You are.
If it's not in their regiment, then she's not going to learn it unless she tries to figure stuff out on her own. But where does she even know to look?
Conversely, to kind of move the subject along, I do like the fact that after she sort of proved herself in that episode, and when she gets her first comm, and she does the thing that we all would, every time you got, your first call, you're like, Echo, can you hear me? You're in the same room. You just want to hear that. That was a sort of another teachable moment. Only now this is something the boys understand. This is technology. This is gadgets and military assets. I like when they're walking into Sid's place and you can see them already drilling her. Okay, what's the play? Stay with your squad. They're already teaching her the rules they were taught as clones to survive out in the world, and that is where her learning process is beginning.
Yeah, and it's fun to see her, and I like that. The writers give her space to be a child. Mm-hmm. She's thrust into this, and she could very quickly, grow up too fast. Or be forced, she's going to be forced into, these very adult scenarios and, she's going to have to grow up quickly. But the fact that she and Wrecker, because she is older than Wrecker, that they have these childlike moments of wonder. And I do like that about this show. And I really did not like this show when I first watched it, but now that I'm rewatching it, I do like it. So continuing on with this, a couple things. So the Bad Batch, they weren't built to win the war necessarily because they're so specialized. They're built to do very specific things. But I feel like they were also built so they would never survive without conflict. Because they're so specialized, they struggle in all other areas. You would think that, just looking at them, they're the A-team. They are that squad. They could survive anything. But now we're seeing them in this world where they're struggling to survive and just get food, get fuel, get the basics, find a job, like you said, they're not used to paying for things. I think Tech says it, there's no Republic drop ship coming for us to drop off supplies. We got to get ammo.
Their ship took a beating and, they had to sit down for repair, somebody's got to pay for the repairs. Somebody's got, these are the Omega Squad, Madagascar Penguin A-team. They're learning as they go.
They are, and it's almost like they didn't. We talk about purpose. They're trying to find their purpose, but maybe they didn't lose their purpose. Maybe they just weren't designed to need one. And maybe now they're starting to realize that they need a purpose. They need to do something. And ultimately, we will find out, what that is, much later on in the series. But it almost feels like Crosshair is the only one who's found his path, for better or for worse. What's your take on that? Dylan, what do you think?
I definitely agree. With the replacement of the Republic with the Empire, it offered immediately a path for a Crosshair that was comfortable for him because, he's the darker guy of the group who likes to do the dirtier stuff.
Yeah.
It was like a safer direction for him to go to not have to worry about what Hunter and the rest of the gang are dealing with, where, he doesn't have to worry about struggling to survive or, the bills being paid or paying for, ships and the gas and the parking and all that. All that's paid for through the Empire.
Right.
There was this thing I was noting earlier, but for some reason it's lost on me.
Well, give me a second to think about it. Tony, what do you think about this and how the guys are reacting to their new situation?
I mean, I think they're doing as best as they can right now. I think that the situation that they found themselves in with Sid, where it's kind of playing out like it could be like hey, here's your mission for the week, and you're going to go and do this, and this is how you're going to survive. I think that gives them time to figure out what they want to do next. It's very much hinted at that she has an understanding of how valuable they might be, and so there's always that risk of, at some point, she's going to turn on them, and is that going to be a problem? But we'll see if that comes to pass.
Right.
But in the meantime, for right now, I think they found themselves in the best possible circumstance where they have a ways of getting the supplies and the money that they need to survive while they figure out something else.
Okay.
Crash, what do you think?
I think with Crosshair, I think it's interesting. We were both kind of on the same page this week. I posted a thing on Facebook and I was asking our followers, I was like, is Crosshair the bad guy?
Right.
And, we got quite a few responses to that. And it was like the majority of them were kind of supportive. They understood, a lot of it's his programming with his chip. But, we see Tarkin and the Kaminoans were messing, they were trying to boost his he was the most loyal to the program that the Empire is trying to enhance. So they were really trying to pump up his inhibitor chip to see if they can kind of boost those numbers a bit. And I don't think that would have worked with the other Bad Batchers. So it's obviously a thing where we see that moment where he's the doors open. There's Crosshair with the Kaminoans clones, trying to, it's like the heel turn. It's like the old wrestling trope where, Crosshair turned on his brothers. Yeah, but he was sort of predisposed to do that anyways.
Right.
Even when they were on the mission on Onderon, he kept, Hunter, you made the wrong call. Finish the mission. Good soldiers follow order. Even though Order 66 didn't click with the Bad Batchers, I think he was the most susceptible to that programming. And that's kind of why, he's working for the bad guys and he's doing bad things. Like, he said, zero, scoping in on the grandma and, the things we're going to see him do later on. It's like,
he's doing his job.
He's doing his job.
He's doing his job, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about as well. Dylan, I think you had mentioned this about, he stuck with what was safe, what was comfortable, what was familiar. Everyone else is trying to hold on to something that's already gone.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
he's adapting to the new, but it's also still where he lives. It's his environment. You know, it's recognizable, it's comfortable. And we see that reinforced when he and what's left of his squad, they go back into their old room. And that was heartbreaking, but it really kind of reinforces that he's not moving forward. He's on his path. And it is
to play into something Crash was saying with Crosshair, I think, you know, Crosshair kind of represents a lot of different things that, you know, Star Wars is often reinforcing, you know, where, you know, with whether or not he's the bad guy in this situation, it's more like in the Star Wars universe, anyone has the capability of going down the bad path, doing the wrong thing, but there's still those elements of maybe he can find his way back. Maybe this person, you know, despite the bad things he's done, is there a way for, you know, this person to come back? And from what Star Wars constantly shows, you know, with characters like Anakin, who I would say is worse than Crosshair, regardless, despite, you know, the old lady stuff.
And Anakin, you know, that whole, you know, murdering children thing. I mean, that kind of,
a little bit of genocide here and there, you know. You know, even it's, you know, believed in the Star Wars ideology that even someone like Vader can come back. So with someone like Crosshair, you know, there's still that possibility. There's that hope for that kind of character. But there's also, I can't remember, I think it was in one of the title crawls of the prequels that said, like, there's heroes on both sides. And I feel like Crosshair kind of fits with that narrative a bit, where, you know, he is working for the Empire, but for, you know, other troopers who would be working for the Empire, he would be seen as a hero, given all of his experience and everything that he's gone through, and to still be loyal to the Empire, despite, you know, the rest of his squad, you know, turning against the Empire, turning traitor. And so there's that element at play, I think.
There's and this show, the more that it goes on, the more nuanced it gets. And I think, again, I think it's definitely worth a rewatch, because when you watch through it the first time, I don't think you pick up on some of these things. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a second. But Paula, 1966, she's joining us from YouTube, and she said she's got a bunch of questions for us. None of them have anything to do with the Bad Batch. Darlin, we're talking about the Bad Batch. But these are great questions. Do you think Keanu Reeves would play a great Darth Revan?
I think he's been fan casted for a while. I think, you know, a lot of people. I didn't play the game, but I think he's a good enough actor that, and they always find actors who play a similar role. Like, I know Keanu Reeves played in a movie called 47 Ronin.
Yeah,
so it's really easy to kind of flip that into the, you know, dress that up in the Revan mythos, and that's why, you know, and it's a big name celebrity, so you think it would carry a film. That's a good choice. I'm sure there's plenty of actors that could do it, but he's a name.
Yeah,
he's a name. I don't know. Maybe,
I think,
you know what, 20 years ago, maybe
he definitely works better as an actor who has as few lines to say as possible, and he's more of like that visual emoting kind of actor. In a lot of cases, that's almost similar to Hayden Christensen during the prequels. Like, you know, not to get too off into the woods there, but I would say, you know, a lot of the dialogue he had was kind of, you know, not, but his ability to visually emote was amazing. You know, seeing his reaction when he's holding his mother in his arms, and I mean,
absolutely,
looks up at the camera, that is rage. And with Keanu Reeves, I think he definitely has that ability to visually emote.
Because his line delivery, he will never not be part of the Ted's Action Adventure, right? It's like, Morpheus? I can't know
Kung Fu.
He will never not be that guy.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, his physicality, the way that he the way that he does emote, I just finished watching last weekend. I watched all the John Wick films plus Ballerina, and it's just like he
rocks that long black hair.
He does. So, but Paula, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing him.
And going back to the Hayden thing,
Venom.
Compare because they
Revan,
came out
Venom.
roughly at the same time. His roles in the prequel trilogy and also his role in a movie called Life as a House, very similar angsty dialogue character, but a little better written than George Lucas can do. Let's be honest, but he performed them beautifully.
Yeah,
and it's a great movie. And him and Kevin Kline play off each other so well together. So you can see where the actor made the dialogue and the role better by their performance, which is kind of what you need. Going back to Bad Batch, Crosshair, we had a comment from a guy named Tim Basiegel on our Facebook page. When we were asking, is Crosshair the bad guy? And he goes, yes and no. He's bought into the good soldiers follow orders mantra, and with or without the chip, we'll find out. He believes that the system won't fail him and that he is just a good soldier that the Empire will reward for his good deeds, even if that means going against those he cares about. And that's the thing. He really thought the Empire was going to take care. It was a safe switch. He went where the job security was with the Empire.
Would you say he's a coward for that, or would you say that he's stronger for sticking with this regime change, but sticking in with that life? I mean, because you could see it from either side. I mean, either he's a coward or he's incredibly brave for choosing an unpopular decision.
I think I wouldn't go so far as to say cowardly, because I don't.
It's definitely the safe route.
It is the safe route, and I do agree with him that Crosshair, he wasn't doing it to stick it to his brothers. He was doing it because he was afraid of what was out there.
Yeah,
and plus Tarkin and the Kaminoans juicing his brain a little bit might have helped influence the decision.
Yeah, that definitely does it. So,
I've got one thought when it comes to Crosshair, and I'm curious, Tommy, in particular, for your thoughts on this. As a former soldier, I wonder if part of his susceptibility to the chip or to just that nature of just do the job is because of his particular mutation in that he's a distance person. Like, it's a whole lot easier to not think about the kill count when you're pressing a button,
right?
And you're not seeing the enemy up close and personal. And granted, with a scope, you can see the enemy up close and personal, but you don't form that connection,
right?
And I think it's very easy for somebody who's constantly backed away from the front line to just say, "This is my target, and I don't care. I don't need to know anything about them. I'm just, this is the target that I've been told to hit. This is what I'm going to do," as opposed to Hunter and who are up close and personal and see that this is another human being, not just a nameless target.
Right. And I can speak. I was a frontline guy, so that's something that, like, I can definitely attest to. It's a lot more. It's a lot more. I think it's for the guys that do operate at a distance. I don't think it's ever easy to do the things that you need to do. For some people it is, but I mean, it always catches up to you eventually. Mm-hmm. But I think it is easier to mentally and emotionally detach when you are at range, when you are at a distance versus being up close and personal. And I think probably in many ways, we talked about Echo feeling a little alienated. We kind of get that vibe from Crosshair, even at the very beginning when we first meet the Bad Batch. He still is kind of the odd man out of the group, because I think that there is that detachment, like you said, everybody else is, even Tech gets, I mean, he's right up there with Hunter and Wrecker when they're taking a base. He's the one, splicing into it. He's right there on the front with everybody else. So Tony, that's a very, 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 very interesting point. He's So then maybe he was actually built to feel more detached, because he's built to operate at range, which made it easier for him to kind of like diverge from the path that the rest of the batch was going. So, which leads us to our next topic. It's pretty smooth how we did that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like we planned it.
We're almost like we planned it. So let's talk about, what the Empire is doing here with the clones, right? We're seeing them, we've got Crosshair leading the recruits. We see them hesitate. Crosshair does not hesitate. We're seeing the first, TKs. We're seeing the first, these are not
Proto stormtroopers.
Yeah. So, they're not the first. They're the first that we've seen, in the timeline anyway. So, we're seeing that, and we see their weakness, their fallibility. They are in, the same mindset that the Bad Batch were. It's like, oh man, these are unarmed civilians. We don't really want to, roast these people. They end up doing it anyway, but out of fear, more than out of, a commitment to duty, they were like, hey, well, they shot dude here, or Crosshair just murked this guy. Is he gonna do the same thing to us? And then now they're starting to see why you don't mess with a clone trooper. You don't mess with someone who was literally born and raised for combat, versus you who was born and raised to do something else, and then you got into combat later on in your life. So when we're looking at this, the Empire is not replacing the clones because they're weak. I think they're replacing them because they're too independent. And I think that they're trying to weed that out with Crosshair. They're trying to find that perfect setting, to make them, because we see them go independent. Obviously, the Bad Batch does, even the quote unquote the regs. As we continue on with our story, I'm trying to avoid those spoilers, but we see other Cut, perfect example. He diverged. He did his own thing. So we're looking at military effectiveness versus political control. Fear versus skill, occupation force versus warfighting force. One is more suited than the other for what the Empire is going to need. And they just don't. The Empire doesn't want elite soldiers. They want obedient ones. And the Bad Batch just doesn't fit that mold anymore. So what are your thoughts on this? Like, this shift. And Tarkin said that it was, or not Tarkin, but what was the other guy's name? The other guy that was Rampart. Yeah. They're talking about the cost effectiveness of it. That, creating these clones isn't cost effective. The donor material is degrading. So there are other more practical reasons to have, a conscripted, human army. But, so what are your thoughts on them, replacing the clones, because the clones are, ironically, they're more of an outlier. They're maybe more unpredictable than humans would be.
Well, not just the clones, the whole system. I mean, we had 2 episodes already where we've seen them setting up these chain code currency exchange shops. Nothing like sending, stormtroopers to the spaceport to round up everybody's credits and issue IDs that you can track anybody across the galaxy.
You have those chain codes, man.
We see we barely got Katsu and the kids chain codes to get through screening, and that's happening all over the galaxy. And Tony mentioned it in our preview episode. This is the early stages of Operation Warmantle, and whatever that full end game was. The Empire is phasing out the clones because they were too independently minded. The Jedi, the non-Karen Travis Jedi, liked the independence of their.
Really, you know what? I haven't brought up Omega Squad not once this entire show. See, and now
drink.
I have to drink.
We have an ongoing.
Am I the only one out without a drink?
Yeah.
You,
We have this ongoing thing.
you were not informed. I'm very sorry that I did not inform you.
We can have a round later. You can
There'll
have
be
a
a next time.
You mentioned Karen.
but that's
We were doing
Lay
so
down.
well. We were doing so well. Anyway,
Sorry.
continue before we get into our lightning round here. I got our lightning round questions coming.
but that was the whole thing, was that the Empire, does not want individuality in their soldiers. The Jedi and the Grand Army of the Republic encouraged it, and that is why the Bad Batch didn't fit Tarkin's agenda, and that's why he was going to have him killed.
Yeah.
So, my personal take on this, and we'll see whether or not the show bears it out, or if it bears out some other point in the canon. I personally took this as one of two things. Personally, I don't necessarily buy the argument of, well, the genetic material is deteriorating, because in theory, you could pull any one of the clones that's out there now and just redo it. Like, if you can take,
But it's not pure.
I mean, to what degree though? I mean, we apparently were able to make a perfect clone of Django, but make it female in order to create Omega.
Right.
So you're telling me we can't go back to like, to me, that's just, I don't necessarily buy that argument. To me, that there's a disconnect in the technology there.
I
But
feel
I
like
there's more to
there's
the
an
point.
explanation, I'm sure, like how far you can stretch that DNA before it
Like,
starts.
it's one thing about making a copy of a copy of a copy. That's one thing.
Right.
But the other factor for me is the Empire has just shown through Order 66 just how clearly it is that somebody can manipulate the clones. And there has been tension between the Empire and Kamino. What would stop the Kaminoans from implanting a different order in the chip to take over the
a
clones
software patch?
of their own? So I can totally understand why the Empire would want to get away from them for that reason, because they've shown how easily they can be manipulated.
Right.
Just because they're, somebody else could do the same thing to them.
All right. That's fair. That's fair. All right. I got some rapid fire questions for you guys. No particular order. I'm going to throw it out there and you just go. All right. Crosshair, defend him or condemn him. Go.
Condemn.
Condemn.
Oh, all right. Everybody's in agreement on that one. All right. Best episode between 2 and 5.
Rampage.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll take 2 just because I'm partial to cut. So
Yeah.
5 is when Fennec Shan shows up, right?
4.
4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to go with 4 then.
All right. And you know what? And speaking of Fennec Shan, that was the next one on my list. Fennec Shan, good move or forced?
Great move.
Good move. Anything with Fennec Shan, I'm on board for.
We already know where you stand on Fennec.
I'm sorry.
It was great because they just introduced her on Mandalorian, and this was like the automatic backstory to fill in. Like, established that she's been a bounty hunter for a while. It was a recognizable name, and it's kind of like when they bring in Greedo or something, and it's like, oh, they had a life before that one moment we saw them in previously.
Right.
So it develops that she has her own timeline.
Yeah. I like that expanding those kind of characters that seem like they're one off, but then they build on them and then they make them awesome. That's how we got Maul being what he is now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Maul, who knew? Maul was just like a disposable, henchman basically, and then he's
just
grown
a
a
dude.
thing. I love it. All right, Omega.
Simple answer there.
Tony, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tony.
I'll just going back to Fennec for a moment. Ming Na when, Ming Na anytime. Thank you very much.
There we go. All right. No one's mad at Ming ever. All right. So Omega, asset or liability?
Asset.
In the short-term liability, in the long-term asset.
I'm with Tony on that one.
All right.
Right now,
Right now with these episodes, she is a total liability in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right now, just in these few episodes, 2 to 5, she is a liability. Everything bad that has happened to the Bad Batch has been directly connected to Omega. So,
except who saved their ass on Pantor when they all got
You're right.
captured.
You're right. You're right. You're not wrong.
And
You're not
yeah,
wrong.
she's learning the lesson. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is she's got four great mentors right now. It's
She
great.
does. She does. She does. Hunter, leader or new dad?
Yes.
Dad.
That's the answer. Yes.
Yes.
All right. So here we are after episodes 2 through 5. Here we are with the Bad Batch. Does this still feel like the Clone Wars to you, or does this feel like something completely different? For me, it kind of feels like the moment where Star Wars is starting to grow up a little bit. You know, I mean, I'm not to say that we haven't had some grown up moments, some tough times in the past, obviously, but we've never been with a group of people quite, you know, with this kind of dynamic. So, do we still feel like this is the Clone Wars, or are we now officially moving towards something different?
I definitely
feel
think
like it's different.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I feel like it's different just because, you know what, we are now 5 episodes into this, and we haven't had a single Jedi. And despite it being the Clone Wars, there was always a Jedi.
Mando.
Always a Jedi. Always a Jedi. That's why I loved about Andor. I was like, yes, this is great. And they still snuck in a fucking lightsaber. They still snuck it in on the ship. They attached it to a ship. They tried to make it cool. It's still a lightsaber. It still had kyber crystals. Shut up. So anyway, so far so good.
Dylan, go. I got it.
I definitely think it's more of that. It's that transitional period between the Clone Wars and the Rebellion era. So I feel like it's kind of its own thing where it's still exploring that familiar time where we're just leaving the Clone Wars. So, I mean, you've got the clone element still there. You've got, you know, that going for it, but you're also seeing the transformation of everything kind of happening rapid pace that turns it into the Empire that we know for in Rebels and into their original trilogy era. So I guess, you know, summarizing it shortly, I would say it's out of the Clone Wars era now, because I mean the Clone Wars is over.
Right.
Yeah.
Last week we were previewing this season, and I kind of described it. This show was the eulogy for the Clone Wars. It's over, it's dead, but there are after effects that are going to carry on. I agree with you. This show is definitely moving into new territory. Same way. The great thing about the Disney Plus era of Star Wars has been we've been able to branch the story of Star Wars off away, not just because that there's anything wrong with the Skywalker saga, but we've been able to go down different branches. The Andor branch, the Rebels branch, the Bad Batch branch, and explore some complex issues. There's some deep stuff they're going to get into with these guys that doesn't involve lightsabers for Tommy, or, you know, and that's good because it gives everybody something they can kind of latch onto as their own. I do want to go back to the space dad thing. Posted on our Facebook page earlier this week. I asked the question, who's the better space dad, Hunter or Din Djarin? And J. Scott Fioretti said, instinctively, I'd say Din, since Omega has a group of brothers, mentors, and Grogu has one guy who he chose over a lightsaber and magic training. So J. Scott's with you, Tommy. But both do well in their unique situations, and that's kind of where I'm coming from, in that these new branches we're going into in the story of Star Wars allow us to explore different strokes for different folks, I guess is a good way to put it. You know, clones who have lost their identity now have to find themselves,
right?
And I think that's one of the things that's going to make the Bad Batch a great show.
I agree, and I'll tell you what, when the first time I watched through it, did not care for it. I kept asking, do we need this? Do we need the Bad Batch? Is this a story that needed to be told? I'm 5 episodes in on my second watch, and I am going to retract my initial statement. I am going to course correct. I am adjusting fire, and I'm going to say, yes, this is absolutely a story that we need. This is a timeline that needed to be discussed, because Dylan and I agree with what you said. It's that era between, this is that bridge between the Clone Wars and the Rebellion era, and there are stories there, and we're seeing them, and I love it. And I'm still not a fan of Amiga, but we'll see if she
likes Amiga Squadron, but not Amiga.
Yeah. Oh. All right. Anyway. Yep. All right. I guess. Yeah. Okay. You know what? We're gonna be drinking a lot because the name of that young clone girl is also the name of my favorite clone squad. So it's going to be very difficult not saying that name and not drinking. So, but again, she should have been an entire squad of badass clone troopers, one of whom falls in love with a Jedi. But then we would have had Jedi. Anyway, so before we head on out, Dylan, please tell us about your stuff so people can see it. I'm pulling up. You've got a trailer that where can people see this? What is it about? Do you have a full-length feature fan film that you're working on, or what's going on?
So this can be found on YouTube at my YouTube page. It's right there with my name next to it. So this is I don't usually try and do full feature-length films because that takes a ridiculous amount of work.
Mm-hmm.
I found this method of filmmaking. I'm sure there's probably some type of terminology for it, but I don't know what to call it. But I sort of it's almost like filming it like a movie trailer where it's covering like lots of ground really rapidly, so it keeps the film short, but it's structured in a way that you should be able to understand the plot of the story being told.
Okay.
And for this one, this fan film that I just released the full video of is about Rey, and it's about her time as a child and her growing up, hearing about the stories of Luke Skywalker and what the broader message of that film is essentially how the story of Star Wars itself influences us as kids growing up, and how it kind of affects us as people, where Rey grows up hearing about stuff about Luke Skywalker, and it kind of inspires her to be a better person as she grows into an adult. It's this project it's just a passion project of mine. It's leading into sort of a kind of a mini web series that's going to branch off and all be interconnected through this original character of mine that I'm creating. And if you'd like to know more, the video itself will hopefully explain. So
I did watch the full film, and I gotta admit, I was really impressed. I like the fact that you are building some connective tissue for Rey. And that's where the next generation. Okay, we got a commercial. So I thought it was great. It's like a mini origin story, like you said, a kid growing up with the legend of Luke Skywalker, like we all did. I like it's got a very Captain Marvel-esque empowerment vibe to it, where like Rey's hearing these stories. We see her getting beaten up on Jakku by some bullies, and she sort of takes that inspiration as the moment where she stands up to them for the first time. And I was like, this is again when I interact with our friends on social media, I kind of get a feel for who's into what, and there are quite a few Rey fans and sequel trilogy fans that they like. This is we talked about last week. This will be their Star Wars. The sequel trilogy. This was their Star Wars, where we grew up with the original trilogy. We can be fans of the stuff that came after that, but that those formative years of our lives were during the original trilogy.
Mhm.
Star Wars has become so generational that a new generation needs a new hero with a new origin story. So I really wanted to commend you. You did a great job on
that's good.
a very short way of saying this is Rey as a child growing up, learning about Luke Skywalker, and that is what inspires her later on.
Yeah.
So, well done.
Well,
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Great. So Blurry Films, right? You said Blurry
Yes.
Films. Is that everywhere? Do you have a website, or is it just YouTube? Or
I think it's just on YouTube. There might be something on TikTok. I haven't really branched out all that much. I'm not like a hugely invested in building like a YouTube brand, despite the work I put into my stuff. It's just I'm a one-person show for the most part.
Right.
Like these bigger projects of mine, that's through the grace of my friend community who I sit down with them and I bombard them with all my ideas, and they go, "Yeah, okay." So,
well, if you ever need a smuggler or a Mandalorian, I'm available. Or if you ever need a questionable X-wing pilot or a Y-wing pilot, I'm sure Crash might volunteer his services as well. And
we'll have to speak more of this in the future because I've got story ideas for days and not running out of any of them anytime soon. So
I've got my smuggler outfit and I got my Mando right there, ready to roll. Let me know.
Respect.
and if you get a chance, I posted a couple of his videos on our Swarzy Facebook group for our VIP members. I'm going to start sharing. The more he comes on, I'm going to start sharing some of his other videos.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's got some fantastic takes that is completely in with our vibe and what we talk about, how we love Star Wars, even if we don't always like it.
Yep.
And countering the fandom menace and all that stuff. Like I said, you think I poked the bear? You think I poked the bear? This guy pokes the bear, man.
Good.
And I love him for it. He's great.
Good. Keep poking the bear. I'm poking him on TikTok. You guys keep handling Facebook and the tubes. We'll get there. We'll get them. We just have to be louder than they are. And I have no problem being loud. So we'll get there. So Dylan, once again, thank you so much for joining us this week. You have an open invitation, so please feel free to come back.
Beauty. Thank you. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we might need to do a little secondary podcast about Game of Thrones so we can discuss Game of Thrones, because I'm always to discuss the GOT. So, all right. So that's going to do it for us, my friends and Star Warriors. So thanks for joining us again this week. Look at that.
A friend of mine found this at a Goodwill and she just got it for me. And I was just like,
here, check out.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. That's my chair.
Okay.
Oh, that's a beauty.
House Targaryen.
Nice.
Oh, that's a beauty.
All right. So next week, what's going on? Well, we're going to be talking about episodes 6, 7, 8, and 9. And here's what we're going to be tracking for those episodes. When does survival stop being enough and something bigger starts pulling them back into the fight? So all of that and more next week. So make sure you tune in. Same bat time, same bat channel right here. And of course, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. We know you could be anywhere else right now, doing anything else, listening to anything else, watching anything else, but you chose to come and hang out with us, and we absolutely appreciate you for it. Of course, share us with your friends. Share us even more so with your enemies, because they will always like it. As always, we do like to tip of the hat to our veterans and active duty service members out there. They are doing things, sacrificing every day. Veterans are dealing with things that you couldn't possibly imagine every day. So we want to thank our veteran community and our active duty military community. And who was that? Oh, Tony, that was you. So talking to Paula. Paula, I'm sorry we didn't get to your questions. Save them. But because when we start watching Maul, we're going to be talking about all that. But really quickly, Paula did ask, she wanted to know if we think that the pink Twi'lek is potentially Darth Talon. I would say no, because she's wearing far too much clothing to be Darth Talon. So
I'm going to say
he's
no.
The Disney version of Darth Talon, I would say.
True.
Dave has been really good. We saw in Clone Wars, he can take things from the Legends EU lore that worked and incorporated into his stories. A Sith chick in a bikini and fighting with lightsabers. It's like every girl gamer's nightmare of, oh yeah, let's go into a melee battle wearing like a chainmail like thong bra. Okay.
But you know what? There was a this was years ago. It was a meme years ago, and it showed like the armor class ratings for female armor, and the less they wore, the higher the armor class rating.
Yeah, because the guys playing as her wanted to keep her alive so he can spank to it all the time.
Of course. And you can I blame Gary Gygax for that. If you know who Gary Gygax is, then you know. But all right, that's gonna do it for us, folks. Look at Tony's like, big ups to Gary Gygax. All right.
Oh yeah.
That's going to do it for us, folks. We are gone. We are out of here. Thanks again for joining us. And always remember, if no one does anything nice for you, do something nice to yourself. And we're going to see you guys next week. Bye.